and the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Kosovo, Donika Gërvalla-Schwarz. Apologies for my pronunciation.
The pronunciation was perfect. Thank you. Good morning. Choosing Pristina for this very interesting discussion. As we are trying to put Pristina on the agenda again, but this time not about peace and stability only, but about how can a country develop that has faced war just 22, 23 years ago, less than 25, where the citizens who do not remember war anymore are not older than 25. So it was mentioned here that Kosovo has a very young population, very skilled, multilingual, and you will recognize that my English, for example, is not as good as that from others here in Kosovo because I'm coming from the diaspora. And in the countries where we live, English is not so well and so broad spoken as in Kosovo itself. So that means that having people where between 80 and 90% are in favor of the European Union integration, 80 to 90% of the people approve the NATO membership. You see that this is something very special in this small and very special country. And that brings us to our main asset, which is our young population. If you choose any open ambience to sit with them, you will recognize that they are not only skilled and multilingual, but they are really just eager to experience democracy and to apply European values in their everyday life. And that's why what they expect us as government to show every day, our commitment for true democracy, rule of law, and European values. That brings me to the point that as I have read in your agenda with the European Union integration of our region, which will be not very easy. It will be a long process. We heard Mr. Schulz telling us about the European Union intern problems in this eternal search for the European identity. These are questions that we in the region have answered since a long time, because we know why we want to go to be part of the European Union, and it's definitely not the money on first place, because as Kosovo can tell the story of a huge diaspora, helping not only with knowledge, but helping with a lot of finances and money as well. 1/3 of our state budget is compared to the money that our diaspora is sending to their families and helping the economy in this country. But the European values are those that the people in Kosovo has decided to apply for themselves. And this is not a decision of today, but this is a decision of the early 90s, and this is a decision that governments can come and go in Kosovo, but this will not change. So the pro-Western orientation. The EU accession will remain for the next years the main challenge for the region. And it's not only the identity problem of the European Union, it's not only the credibility, but sometimes it's the double standards that are being applied when you talk about one part of Europe that is, as it was said today, in the heart of Europe, and the cynicism of some of the European Union politicians looking at the Balkan and Balkanizing as a verb, that the Balkan is simply not able joining the EU because they are like they are and they will never get their way. That's why I'm very happy that in the last years in the last months, the discussions about how to integrate the Balkan region, the Western Balkan countries, how to integrate them best in the European Union are going to be more intensified. We had this year already an EU Western Balkan summit. We will have the next one in this November probably. And that's a very important point because the Western Balkan countries must sit at the table when discussions about the future of our region are taking place. So we have one concern in the last months, and these are initiatives who are appearing and who show us that if the European Union is not serious with the efforts to the countries of the Western Balkans, not only malign influences will be strengthened, but alternative alliances will appear who are not only not good for our region, but who are a real threat for Europe itself. And if I should mention just one of them, I would pick out the Open Balkan Initiative, who would open the doors for a lot of Chinese, Russian, and other influences to the European Union markets. So Kosovo is clear in that we want to become members of the European Union. We want to become as soon as possible member of NATO. And I really believe that the EU integration itself is not enough when we describe the alternatives and the future of the region. We always speak in Kosovo about the Euro-Atlantic integration because the Euro-Atlantic integration is the part who is guaranteed stability and peace long-term in our region. Now, it's difficult talking in these days about Europe, peace, stability without mentioning that we have to manage two challenges. The first one I would mention is coming in next days, and this is the 31st of October, an issue of rule of law, which is very important in Kosovo, but is being seen by Russia and Serbia as an opportunity, as a possibility to strengthen the threats towards Kosovo and the peace in our country. And the second one is a structural problem. That is the threat, the long-term threat to the peace in our country, but not only. So when we talk about the first one, the rule of law, we have an issue we need to bring to an end in the next days, and it's about car plates. I see here a lot of expert specialists. Seldom in the history of countries, when you speak about peace and stability, you need to mention car plates, such technical problems. And it comes maybe from this, what we are used with our northern neighbor to experience, is in taking one small technical issue, in making that the issue itself the most important one. And so half of Europe, our partners in the United States and in UK, are speaking with us since months about car plates. That shows that if you do not solve the big problems, the principal ones, the basic ones, then you will spend your time with small issues which will not bring the process of normalization with the neighborhood forward. So the dialogue with Serbia is about normalization that should bring the mutual recognition, and the final agreement should be the mutual recognition that will enable not only Kosovo, but the whole region to have a better regional cooperation and to have a better future altogether. But what does it mean, the final agreement? When we talk about final agreements, we create the impression that the final thing should happen anywhere in the future and any time in the future, and it's not something that we are dealing with in these days. I'm really convinced that without having at the dialogue table now, at this moment, the question of mutual recognition and deal today with that question of mutual recognition, instead of dealing with a lot of technical matters, it will be more and more difficult to find a solution with our northern neighbor, because the war in Ukraine has, here in the region as well, changed everything. We are not talking anymore about joint efforts to find a solution with Serbia, but we are talking about find a solution with Serbia, even when we know that Serbia has lost the European path. They have given up, if that existed any time, but they have given up that European path, and that the Russian influence and the Russian leverage over our region is so strong and so high because of Serbia behaving as the best, as a simple proxy of that policy. The Prime Minister mentioned that they signed in New York the alignment not about building roads or bridges or trade or industry, but about foreign policy with Russia. And in this region, but meanwhile in Western Europe and elsewhere as well, everybody knows what does it mean. What is the Russian foreign policy? The Russian policy is wars against neighbors. The Ukraine war is not the first one. And the Russian foreign policy is an aggressive policy, not trying to find solutions, but trying to find reasons, to find pretexts to aggress their neighborhoods. So that's why it's very important that when we try to find solutions, the analysis, the diagnosis is a real one, is a good one. And that's why it's important that when our partners speak with us and we try to find together solutions, that these at first place are everybody who speaks to us have in mind that we are interested on European value solutions and not on solutions which are coming from the 18th, 19th century, for example, in which basic thought is ethnicity as such. Those solutions must be not violating our constitutional framework, who, by the way, is a very European and very modern and very new one. It is one international constitutional framework. So if we have in mind these two principles, not violating our constitutional framework and thinking about European values and principles, then every solution will be possible. All the other proposals trying to find exceptional ways in dealing with the problems in the Balkans will maybe show a success today for some months, but will create for the future huge problems which we all together need to talk again. And I agree very much with Sir Peach, who said that we shouldn't need anymore the international presence and international mediators and all these efforts for peace and stability in our region, but because of the mistakes made in the past, we need that still, and we need to move forward instead of talking and not providing results.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for those words. Thank you. Once again, I'm going to go back to the Deputy Prime Minister to kick us off on this. What are your thoughts?
I think that the most important question is what do we believe that when, and I'm convinced about that, Ukraine wins this war and Putin loses this war, what will be the next thing he will do? Are we expecting Putin just to accept losing the war and going back to Russia and apologizing to his people for this war he has started? Or are we expecting him to find other hotspots, to create other hotspots, so that he never needs to accept in front of his people that it was everything senseless what he did in rescuing 100,000 of lives for his crazy ideas. And I expect him to do the second one, and which is the most possible region he will choose. It will be one region where he has his proxies doing his work for him, because you cannot just enter any region where you have not prepared the ground for that. And having Serbia behaving like they behave, and there is no doubt, they are not thinking, should we go in this or that direction? They have already decided where they belong. The Europeans are the ones who are still not understanding that Serbia has decided to leave the EU path. And the Europeans are the ones who are not accepting that Serbia has no desire at all to become part of the European Union. Yes, European money, but that's it. It's not about the political future in the European Union. And as we are not talking about a country anywhere where European Union does not have any influence, but we are talking about a country with a candidate status. So I would expect the European Union at the fourth week after this war started, and Serbia showed everybody that they are not aligning with the rest of the democratic world in sanctioning Russia for this war. I expected the European Union, for example, to freeze the candidacy status of Serbia. The second step that I expected the European Union to do was, for example, at the moment when oligarchs in Serbia signed the contracts for fuel and gas with oligarchs in Russia, I expected the European Union to put them on the sanctions list. So, because which is the message that we are sending all together to the rest of the countries in the Western Balkans who do align? If you look to Northern Macedonia, and I agree, for a long time they were the example of making compromises, looking to the future. And if you look now, the approval rates for the European Union, there are 11%. And this has reasons, because citizens to ask themselves if that's so easy to oppose the rules and nothing, no consequences are coming. So why do our governments do the steps in solidarity with Ukraine and let the citizens pay for that, with inflation, with higher prices, with insecurity and all the other questions? So it's true that it must be consequences for actions that are showing that they do not only align, but what happened in New York with signing on foreign policy is really a slap in the face of everybody who has believed that Serbia is still thinking about which way to choose. They, as in the 90s, we were trying to show that a war is coming and that it's no chance on appeasing Milosevic that time. And as we see now, Serbia making every day steps back. For example, since 2 days, we know that the new foreign minister and the coordinator for the security agencies in Serbia is Ivica Dačić. He has been for 8 years, he has been the spokesperson of Milosevic, but not 8 years. It is the period from 92 to 2000, during the genocide. He has been the spokesperson of Milosevic. Putting the foreign policy in his hands means for us in the region that we are really looking back to the past. And for us, as we hear always from our partners and friends, do not look into the past, look in the future. It's not the past of Serbia who is the problem today. The presence, how they behave today, is the problem for the future of our continent. And that's why we are urging and asking all our partners to act now and to send the signals that the people in Serbia, not only the government, but the people in Serbia need to hear and to understand, so that we have now a chance, not stepping up in a next conflict we cannot manage in the future.
Thank you very much.